He's not going and looking very calm there. Now, lots to talk about. I think we're going to start with you, Aisha.
Yes, I'm going to start with the Conservative row over Andrea Leadsom and her comments about motherhood. Now, many of us feminists are very pleased that finally there's going to be, you know, two women vying for the top spot, but it is very depressing that this has become a row about whether or not you are fit to govern, depending on whether or not you've had children. And there's a huge backlash against Andrea Leadsom from a lot of senior Conservative women, Anna Soubry, Priti Patel, Ruth Davidson, who doesn't have children herself. She says, I have nieces and nephews, and I, like everyone else, have a very real stake in the country.
Do you think it's fair everyone's ganging up on Leadsom over this?
Well, look, I think women pay a penalty either way. I think if women have got children in politics, they suffer a hard time. They often get asked the question, can you cope? Can you dedicate enough time? If you don't have children, you almost pay a penalty. Why don't you have children? Why haven't you sort of fit that? No. I think one of the mistakes that Andrea Leadsom did make, though, was to sort of contest what was said, because Rachel Sylvester, the journalist who did the interview, is a very respected and credible journalist. And actually, when they released the transcript, it was even worse, actually, when we heard the full conversation.
And you can imagine, as a war correspondent, journalist and a mother, we face all the very same issues that many women all over Britain do, whether you're a mother or not a mother. If you've tried and you can't have kids, this is not an in Europe or out of Europe issue. This is an issue that grassroots people understand, mothers everywhere. And I think it shows a lack of judgment, to be frank. Whether you talk the feminist card here, it shows a lack of judgment to even say that in public. Because it's great to have so many women vying for the top job.
Tim, I suppose that the really poisonous aspect of this is she appeared to be suggesting that because Theresa May didn't have children, she somehow didn't have as much stake in Britain's future as Andrea did.
Absolutely not the case, and she made it absolutely clear in that interview all the way through that in no way was her passion for her family and her children to be taken in any way derogatory towards Theresa.
Yet she raised it.
Why did she do it, Tim?
Because
that's what fires her up.
She did say, Tim, in the transcript that, that she didn't have a stake, she had a better stake of understanding the future because she had children.
People are fired up and inspired by different things. In Andrea's case, and I've known her, I'm godfather to her eldest son. Her children are the thing that really fires her up. Andy Murray today has said the most important thing for him now is his family. So is he criticising other tennis players who don't have children? Would we be having this argument if these were two men as the candidates?
We definitely would be having this argument.
Can I ask a slightly wider question? Because in all the analysis of the Leadsom versus May battle, it's being suggested that this is a kind of culture war as well. This is, as it were, the traditional Conservative right, Ian Duncan Smith and so forth, a bit more sceptical about gay marriage, a bit less liberal about some of the things that came in under the modernisers in the Cameron era, getting back perhaps your final chance to take back the Conservative Party.
There's nothing traditional about Andrea in this respect. This is not about trying to take back control of the Conservative Party. This is a fresh candidate in Andrea Leadsom, who has much more experience outside of politics than all the other candidates put together.
And you picked a story in the Sunday Times which analyses the two campaigns.
Well, I think, look, both candidates are immensely strong. We had 5 very strong leadership candidates for the Tory party leadership. Any of them a credible Prime Minister. The Labour Party is desperate to try and find one and struggling. They bring different aspects. Each of them would make a fantastic Prime Minister. I had absolutely no problem with Theresa as Prime Minister serving her government or from the backbenches or whatever. But Andrea, I'm afraid the establishment seem to be getting Andrea. It's all about let's gang up on Andrea.
Can I just say that's a little bit unfair, because we went through this through the Brexit argument as well. If the Remain camp brought out facts, the Brexiteers criticised the messenger, and the same thing is happening here in the May Leadsom race. She said what she said. She said what she said, and she said what she said. That is her judgment.
And what she said is she's passionate about her kids.
Correct.
Let's move on from the children.
When has it been a crime to be proud about your children?
It's never a crime. But the thing is, it's also about pro and who is really the best position to take this position. And I think political press need to really take the facts and see, where the weight lies. But I want to ask you, policies,
well,
exactly.
I'd like to switch one policy for Andrea.
Just a quick question here. I want to ask you, because this is a genuine question here. You have Britain First, a far-right extremist group who is potentially getting, behind Andrea Leadsom. Is that a worry for you? Because this ultra-nationalist group is very dangerous. dangerous. I mean, we've had a political
Vile.
assassination in this country. Of course, they denied they had
You
anything to
can't
do
choose
with
the
it.
people, I suppose, who...
But are you going to
they
really
applaud
get up
from
and say,
outside.
no, we will not be associated with this country?
Absolutely.
Look what's happening in the United States.
They are vile, toxic, loathsome people. We want absolutely nothing to do with them. If anybody needs to be deported, it's people with those sorts of dangerous, poisonous views. They are trying to make out a campaign for Andrea simply because she's a Brexit candidate.
What is the positive message from Andrea Leadsom's campaign? What is it about her that makes you think that she'd be a great Prime Minister?
OK, she is a fresh face who made a virtue out of absolutely passionately believing that Britain's best future was outside of the EU, and she wants to make that work, and she wants to be in the position to make sure that Britain achieves that.
All right, let's turn to the other big political story of the day, which I started the programme with, the struggle for the Labour leadership. Angela Eagle has come out now saying that she is going to stand. She's going to formally announce over the course of the weekend or tomorrow. And that is really going to plunge your party, Aisha, because it was your party, into complete turmoil for a bit, isn't it?
It's very serious for the Labour Party. It's actually very serious for British politics. You know, we're in a very, very difficult climate. We have a government which is having a leadership crisis, and we have an opposition which is not functional at the moment. So there was an impasse that had been reached. Those talks clearly broke down yesterday. I think what Angela had wanted to do was give those talks a chance. Clearly they reached failure. So she's indicated strongly that she will...
Jeremy Corbyn's people would say that Tom Watson brought the House down in order to allow Angela Eagle to make that the whole thing was part of the plot.
I don't take that view. I genuinely think that Tom Watson did everything he could to get a deal because, look, the future of the Labour Party is very precarious now. We have a parliamentary party which is ground to a halt. We have a leader who cannot command the respect of Parliament. Yes, the members are important, the voter is important, but your MPs in Parliament are important. So I think it is right that Angela is going to launch a campaign because we have to try and find some way forward for the Labour Party.
Now, Aisha, I said right at the top of the programme that this was going to be a brutal and damaging campaign or something like that. And some people may think, why am I saying that? But you've got some tweets, I think, there which give a little bit of a sense of some of what's being said already before it's got going properly.
I mean, the climate in the Labour Party has become very hostile, particularly against women. There's a lot of misogyny, there's a lot of homophobia. Angela Eagle particularly is now at the receiving end, having had the temerity to challenge Jeremy. She really is receiving quite disgusting abuse. There is a Twitter feed called Gentler Politics. I can't actually read out most of the tweets because they're so vile. But let me give you a flavour of how a lot of women, particularly in the Labour Party, who have expressed a view against Jeremy Corbyn. One MP said to me, look, we used to get together on caucus and talk about the equal pay gap, childcare. We are now dealing with death threats, rape threats, threats to our family. And some of this, not all of it, but some of it is coming from Jeremy Corbyn supporters.
No, I know you're also a stand-up comic, and your new show, Tales from the Pink Bus, is about women in politics. Is it going to deal with some of these darker sides of being a woman in politics?
Yes, it does. I mean, it's a very honest show about my time in the Labour Party and how difficult it is for women in power. But hopefully, we will see that change soon.
Maybe one time, instead of the music at the end of the show, will get you there to do a bit of a number.
Great Tim, for her show, though.
You've got a story from The Observer, I think, about voter turnout. Interesting story, because we always wonder, how interested are people in what's going on, really?
Well, if there's one really encouraging thing about the referendum, one, the turnout was 72%, the highest turnout in a national election since 1992. But a survey, quite comprehensive survey from the LSE, has shown that amongst young people, 18 to 24-year-olds, who are the most reluctant voters, the turnout was 64%. Now, the last
really
election,
interesting, because people were trying to get these young voters on board because they thought they were Remainers, and Brexit nonetheless won.
And we had that last-minute extension because supposedly young people didn't get their act together to register. The last general election, the turnout was something like 43%, and it actually, amongst young voters, actually went down. So most young voters don't bother to vote, including first-time voters. The referendum actually got to them, engaged them, and got them to go out and vote. So there is some hope that actually our democracy is going in the right direction, which is fantastic.
OK, now there's two other stories we must do. One is Chilcot and one is Dallas. Christiane, start with Chilcot.
Well, obviously, we've all been through Chilcot and we've seen the verdict, and it was very damning. It was not a whitewash. It was pretty damning against Tony Blair. He didn't get away with it, so to speak, in the court of public opinion. I would say, having covered the war, I remember that the actual war itself was won pretty quickly with relatively fewer casualties than the post-war. I think the big lesson going forward, if we want to go forward, is the absolutely atrocious negligence by mostly the Americans of the lack of post-planning. And I was there, I saw it. I remember reporting first the looting, and we were told by Donald Rumsfeld, that's not looting, that's the same, you know, porcelain vase coming out over and over.
It's the State Department and the Foreign Office.
Well, it's the Pentagon, actually. To be very frank, it was the Pentagon in the United States under Donald Rumsfeld who poo-pooed any idea of professional post-war planning and failed to recognize and denied the insurgency. And that was really terrible. Then you had the surge.
We're going to talk to David
Then
Davis
you had
in
the
a
surge,
moment
and that stopped
about what
Al-Qaeda.
happens next.
Yeah.
Very interesting. The other story we absolutely must do is Dallas.
Well,
the
our
Dallas
friend,
shootings.
Okay, well, I just wanted to say that Marie Colvin, who was killed...
I know, there's a legal case now.
There's a legal case. Well, Dallas is absolutely appalling. Obviously, what happened in Dallas and the killing of the police officers, which came because of, apparently, according to the crazy guy, the killings of the black people in Minnesota and Baton Rouge. And that is becoming a very, very tough...
Race in America is getting lethal and extremely dangerous.
Yeah, and so are the politics going to the extreme, and you don't want to see that coming here to Britain.
So this was a fairly bleak news review. Has anyone got the front page of the Observer there?
Yes,
because there is
they nailed
it.
Because it's here we go. Weather terrible, sterling tumbling, politics dismal, Euro flops, not Wales, Brexit coming, recession looming. Andy, please cheer us up.
I'll have to say, as a Scot...
Wimbledon has never mattered more.
Yes, and as a Scot, it's never mattered more as well.
He's British. And we won the wheelchair doubles at Wimbledon yesterday.
Wheelchair, let's not forget that. Listen, thanks all of you. That was really, really interesting. Now then,